You're listening to the Pull List Podcast with Chris Poirier and Hector Marai, a bi-weekly show about how comics, pop culture, and faith affect culture at large. This is part of the Love Thy Nerd podcast network.
Better put the word out. Get ready for the nerd out. Better put specs on.
Greetings, true believers, and welcome to yet another episode of the Pull List Podcast. With me, as almost always, actually, it's always been always, the best co-host that any comic book podcast could ask for, the one and only Hector.
Excelsior.
Believe it or not, we missed dropping an episode a week ago, and oops. I was traveling and basically had no internet. Lesson learned. But we're back and we're ready to make it up to you with. He totally broke it. I still haven't seen that movie. Is it really good?
It's Inside Out with Wreck-It Ralph, in the sense that it's a fun experience, but it's way over kids' heads, and the entire story is about, like, in a nutshell, your insecurities will kill any relationship you have, and it's a film about boundaries, codependency, and toxic relationships. And like, I felt attacked when I left the theater. But anyway, Ralph broke the internet.
Yeah.
So,
Wreck-It Ralph broke the internet. Hector says, see that, but maybe bring a tissue box and be sure to, wow. So
check yourself before you go. But that's why we didn't have the podcast last week, because Ralph broke the internet and Chris couldn't get on it.
Yeah, Ralph totally broke the internet and might have broken Hector, but we'll come back to that. But this is episode 5. So welcome back to the Pull List Podcast. We've been out for a while, but you know what? We're also not alone here doing this podcast journey with Love Thy Nerd, but we're actually part of the Love Thy Nerd podcasting network, along with 2 other amazing shows, Humans of Gaming, where Chris and Drew talk game development and host tons of really cool people for interviews, and the Free Play Podcast, where you basically get your geek on just about anything and everything. Bubba, Matt, and Kate take you on a wonderful journey of just all things gaming and geeky in general, week to week, and it's a fun little ride. So we're super happy to be here with the other shows of Love Thy Nerd and be able to bring to you the glorious world of comics, at least when Ralph doesn't break the internet. But you can find all of us and all those great things at lovethynerd.com and just about anywhere that podcasts can be procured. So as usual, we want to jump into, well, what have we been reading? So Hector, what have you been reading? What have you been watching other than Wreck-It Ralph breaking the internet, which is now the theme for the rest of this episode? You're welcome.
It is. Which, by the way, I feel like this is important. It is Stan Lee's first post-death cameo. So,
I did see that. Was it good? Was it awesome?
It was barely there, and I'm not hurt by it. It was Ray and Finn are checking out Iron Man, and Stan Lee walks by. So, I mean, it's literally, it wasn't even a big thing, but it was enough that made me punch my 10-year-old in the arm, because I got excited, but I didn't want to yell.
And obviously that had probably been done and planned long before what happened. So it just ended up being that thing that just kind of pulled us back and made us remember.
So here is your trivia for the next time you're in a nerd competition. Stan Lee's last living cameo was in Venom, and his first post-death cameo was in Ralph Breaks the Internet. And moving on.
Comic books are all about those first appearances and last appearances. That's just what it's about.
All right, so what have I been reading? Here's what I've been reading. Still been reading Red Hood. I got nothing for Batwoman and Jason together. It's just, I think that this is where this is heading right now, but meh. I'm a big Jason fan, but I'm not mad at this. It's just not proving to be fantastic. Let's see. What else have I been reading? Marvel Knights has been dope.
A lot of stuff has come out in the last couple of weeks. And seeing as we're working off 3 weeks, I was sitting there going, what did I forget?
Yeah, I'm actually browsing through all my comics and saying this. Marvel Knights has been really fun. It still feels a lot like House of M. So there's that. Heroes in Crisis. We've hit issue 3, and I still feel like nothing's happened.
Right?
Like nothing has happened. And I'm okay with Tom King's writing. I'm okay with the situation. I'm okay with the story. But I feel like by issue 3, uh, we should already be on a heavy plot line. Because is this 7 issues? Is this 12 issues? What is this?
Oh, I totally forgot. It's not 12. So it's 7 or 8 from what I recall. So
Yeah.
we're almost to the halfway point. Now, I've seen Tom do this in other arcs of things, and I think he kind of like in Mr. Miracle, which was 12. I feel like there are breadcrumbs right in front of us, and there's going to be a gotcha in the next 2 issues. Because I was just kind of watching this. I read the number 3 and came to the same conclusion. I was like, you just gave me a lot of detail, but I don't think it told me anything. But then I kind of started flipping back through it, and I'm like, no, there's something here. He usually doesn't do this.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it is yet, other than the pieces again of Harley and Booster that we're kind of starting to understand what may or may not have happened in the order that they may or may not have happened in.
Well, so here's the thing. Like, Harley saw Booster do it. Booster saw Harley do it.
Right. Exactly.
So I definitely think there's something more to it. And I'm still kind of leaning towards my original thought. Like, the only thing outside of Jason Todd that really is or of Roy Harper that's really impacting this is that I really feel like this could be all in their heads, that they're just dealing with this. But like the fact that there hasn't been more stuff, that issue 2 they dropped that Lois got a package with like Roy's identity stuff. Like,
right.
Come on, you can't skip a whole issue and not really deal with that. But whatever.
I'm sorry. I
Go ahead.
I have to, because this was my high point too, of the fact that they all can choose to conceal their identity with the masks and the robes. So in theory, that other people that are there at the same time don't necessarily know who is and who isn't. And then also that little danger room like aspect of that their therapy is they can literally choose to either face that moment again, or there's different ways to deal with that. Also kind of leads me to that. Is it happening? Is it not happening? That he's knitting together these little threads that I'm like, this is important, but I don't know why yet.
Yeah, I agree. Daredevil, that arc was good. The finishing of that story, and just to leave, and I'm trying to not be the spoiler guy again.
Yep.
But I felt it was a really good run. I wasn't wounded. I did feel a bit rickrolled.
That's fair. Because for those of you that listened to our earlier when we were talking about this, our hope that it wouldn't end a particular way, well, it didn't end that way, and that's all we're going to give you.
Yeah, it didn't end the way I guessed, but although it looked for a second like it could at the end of one of those issues. But I wasn't displeased. I just have to say that ending coming now in light of Daredevil being canceled on Netflix, I just feel very violated across the board.
Ooh, that's a good point.
Because, like, literally, what are you guys doing? Because
what happened?
Because I'm just getting into Daredevil, and I know that there's another arc and another creator coming and all these things in the comic, based at least on the last page. But
yep, nope, absolutely. I forget the exact date, but it is reslated. I can say I'm not as excited based on the current creative team, but I'm going to give it a shot. Everybody gets a couple to convince me to stay or go.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, this is the same creative team that did that thing with the Supreme Court, right?
Yep. Yeah, no,
like,
this was the end of Sewell's entire run, which for Marvel, other than a few other folks in major titles, is a pretty long run with the same writer, at least.
How many was that?
It's at least 30 or more from what I recall.
Yeah,
because they did really the whole legacy numbering in the middle. It really kind of messed me up. To the internet. Continue.
Yeah, to the internet. So there was that. But Daredevil, I was pleased to say, I'm not happy about the amount of Marvel I'm reading. Just in the sense, I don't budget for that, and it's just been picking up. Immortal Hulk has been steadily just getting good. Like, It's getting better. It's getting gross and grotesque. It's getting demonic in a sense. Not like, burn it like a Harry Potter book in 1999 demonic, but like all us church kids.
Ooh.
Um,
Ooh.
Harry Potter's the devil. But no,
but he's really not kids. Don't mishear us.
no, he's not. That was church mom culture in 1999. Just because Pokemon was the devil, and then Harry Potter became the new devil, and I don't know what's been the devil since then. I've tried to avoid it, but I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. But with that, Hulk, like, literally the next few runs of Hulk are like Hulk in Hell.
Oh, interesting.
Like legit. So that's fun. Like the next arcs are Hulk in Hell. So I'm interested to see it. And let's see, a couple other things. Unnatural came back from its big hiatus. Still interesting.
It keeps turning. I had this chat with someone else recently that I didn't know what to expect when I started this book. 3 issues in, I really didn't know what to expect, and now I'm just like, okay, I'm here for the ride, but good on you for keeping me on my toes.
Well, and that's the thing, like, they shot themselves in the foot, in my opinion, with the overly sexy covers for some of them. Because as I was talking to a cosplayer that does weekly reviews of comics, and he said he would never pick it up because it looks like furry porn. And he said he couldn't get past that. And here's the deal. I also am not super keen about the covers being in my kids' library, like on our Kindle library. So
that's a good point.
Like, so my kid, I had to give both of my kids a warning, like, don't. I get it. She might look cute. Don't. But it has continued to be interesting. Marvel Knights does still feel like House of M, but I'm not complaining. Doomsday Clock was dope.
Right?
Doomsday Clock felt like a classic DC story that I'm just picking up now that came out 20 years ago.
And it gave me the feels for the original story arc. And we're at issue 8. There's more issues. That Doomsday Clock, they were working towards the boom, for the lack of a better term.
Yeah.
I feel like we got the boom this time, which means we actually get 4 more issues to find out what the point really is. And I got chills when I hit that last panel because I was like, oh yes.
Yeah, so they're doing good things with Doomsday Clock. I also feel like, though, when a story drags on this long with this few issues, do people stop caring?
It's possible because, honestly, all of the marketing for Doomsday Clock started with, the clock in the Superman symbol.
Yeah.
Slight spoiler, issue 8 is where we first see Superman.
Yeah, and it's a bit hard, but like I was looking through books this week of what I was going to pick up. I'm like, oh yeah, Doomsday Clock still exists. Like, I wasn't like, oh no, I still have to read this, because let's be super honest, like the Mime and Marionette, right? Those have been dope. I enjoy those characters. But this story, I really wish that they would have had it a little more together and easily more packaged coming out on a regular basis. Because literally we've gone through holidays and hurricanes and floods and funerals and weddings and all these other things since then. And this is not on the forefront of people's mind. I really don't believe that. So I think that's the only thing that's going to hurt its success, is the fact it took too long. And Shazam. Good job, guys.
Yeah, I was about to make that transition because I was like, well, Jeff Johns is writing a lot right now. Between show running, but then also Doomsday Clock being like his love letter. It's like, well, we got to get Shazam to market as well. So it's like, oh dang. But tell me what you thought about Shazam. I'm curious because I enjoyed it too. I thought it was fun.
Well, I'm gonna be super honest. I'm only in this for Zachary Levi, um, because I want my kids to have something to read, and so that they're not totally blindsided when we get to see Zachary Levi, you know, suit up in April. Because
Right.
I'm a Chuck fan, and I've met Zach and I've given Zach a Faith and Fandom book, and we've talked, and I'm a big fan of his and his journey, and he's just a generally good dude. But yeah, I started seeing Shazam as Zachary Levi now when I'm reading or hearing his voice, and uh, hearing Zachary Levi as Shazam just makes it more fun to read. But I really thought it was a good book because it honestly took a lot of times. Shazam is bogged down way too much in its own mythos,
Hmm.
and the fact that they took the entire backstory, threw it on one page, and said, "Pick it up, we're going, move on."
Right. I was pretty impressed by that too. I was like, oh, we're gonna remind everyone how this happened, but we're already done. Well done.
Well, it's like with the Andrew Garfield Spider-Mans. They should have had a intro montage of his origin and picked up from there and like full blown Spider-Man. I really feel that's kind of where they messed up that series.
Look, just leave Uncle Ben alone. He's been through enough.
Yeah, he's been through enough. But the big twist in this Shazam, I don't consider this a spoiler. It's just the outline of the plot. The big twist in this is that not only does Billy get the powers of the Rock of Eternity, he passes them on to all of the kids in his foster home.
Yeah, the
Um,
Shazam family. I am
the
digging it.
the Lightning League, the
Right?
Thunder Squad.
They go through a wonderful montage of naming things, and it is everything that one could hope for.
And then Billy asks that his name be Captain Marvel, but his mom interrupts him to ask if he wants lasagna, and so like they make that cute little joke.
Yep.
Okay, last thing just to say, this is a big week month for me because this is where I decided I'm done with The Walking Dead. Like I read the first 130 or first 120 issues straight. I dropped it for a year or two, picked it back up in graphic novel form, and I've been reading it ever since. But I just came to it this issue to realize I just don't care anymore. I'm also like I haven't seen past the second episode of this season, and I'm like I'm not gonna schedule my life around this. So I'm letting The Walking Dead go. Yeah, I'll probably pick it up years down the road, but yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd say if Robert Kirkman ever gets to the point that he finally ends this story, folks will wander back to it. I definitely have a ton of folks that still are sub to it and pick it up every week, but I do feel like the conversation is waning, that we're 170, 180 something issues in now. So talking about longevity and storytelling that people kind of like what they're seeing in the show, I'm hearing from fans is, yeah, we get it. They're gonna meet a new person that's really evil. There's some zombies, and someone's gonna get eaten, or someone's gonna get their head bashed in. That's
And they're going to move. They're going to find a civilization, integrate themselves in it, ruin it, repeat.
People are bad, kids. That's the message. I just saved you a ton of time if you've not actually read The Walking
People
Dead.
are
But to be
bad.
fair, really bad. Okay.
Okay.
Great. That just
But
cost us.
if they don't, we just got kicked out of the Christian bookstores.
Whoops.
If they don't end Walking Dead on issue 200, they lose. Just saying.
Ooh, that would be a really good, from a comic book perspective.
From a
ending on
comic
them,
book perspective, if they don't
those
end
big
on
round
issue,
numbers,
because that'll be one of the only books to hit 200, like that, out of an independent thing and with one consistent story and almost the same artist through the whole arc. That's a big deal.
Spawn and Savage Dragon have something to say to you about that. But
I said
interestingly enough,
one
both
of
Image books.
yeah, Image books. All right, so what do you got? What are you reading that I'm not?
All right, so we covered all the big ones, but I did have a couple things on my list. I did pick up the new book. I do believe it's an Image book, so there you go. Called Die.
I saw that
week
circling the internet.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So it has that D&D feel, because D&D is what the kids are into today, and you can also
is it Die Like a Dice? Oh.
It's actually no. Well, yes and no. It's actually a lot more complicated than that, and how they set up the story, I don't want to give away, so I'm going to try to talk around it because I think people will enjoy what they've done. Is, Stranger Things and other things, it's a little overt. This one is super overt in what's going on. These kids get together to play a role-playing game, but they lay out the rules, and I'll give you the basics, which is every person in your party chooses their character and race and all that good stuff, and they get one die out of a polyhedral set. You don't get the full set. You're only given one. We don't know why that is important, but that one of them, who is the dungeon master or game master, is actually a player, and he's the only one with a D20. And then all these kids disappear. Their parents are like, oh, they were in the basement doing the evil thing of the D and the dice, and they're gone. And they disappear for a couple years, and then they all show back up except one of them. And all you get at the end of it is you don't really know where they went, but that stuff got real, and somebody didn't come home, and that's the lead up to the story.
Okay.
I thought it was pretty neat. All you know is that whatever happens in where they disappeared to is permanent. And it has a lot to do with whatever they were doing as part of the game.
So it's Lord of the Flies with D&D.
Yeah, possibly. But the art is freaking great. It is a mature book. So not for the kiddos, but I'm hooked. I want to see how this plays out, because it either sounds like a great idea or I'm going to be knee deep in cliche real quick. So you can check that out. I still love The Flash. Joshua Williamson's still writing great Flash stuff. It's getting a little weird because we were talking about before that we now know there are other forces other than speed, and he's still kind of playing that out. And I don't know how I feel about that quite yet.
So they're trying to do the lantern spectrum with the speed spectrum?
And it's not just speed, because like one of them's like calm, and then we saw the strength force in an earlier arc where they gave Trickster he became the Hulk basically, and it's like, oh, come on, no, don't do this. But yes, because they're all different colors and different emblems. So yeah, we definitely got the Lantern Corps feel going on to the story. But one thing I do love about Joshua Williamson and his writing in The Flash is he loves Gorilla Grodd. So he's spending a lot of time in Gorilla City and unpacking a lot of Grodd's history and the gorillas, which you don't get a lot of. So
I don't love Grodd.
Well, that's what's kind of funny is like right now we're talking about how Grodd basically tried to destroy his dream, and the Gorilla City folks are like, yeah, we don't really love that dude either. So there's some interesting dynamics. I'm entertained. Why are you not entertained? I don't know. I did keep picking up Batman Beyond because I mentioned last time about the original Joker being present in the Beyond universe, and so two issues in, I'm actually still okay. He's almost running like a I didn't get to finish you off the first time, Barbara type thing, which is real dark.
Okay.
And they just pulled forward an original Jason Todd reference with Joker, and it sounds like he's potentially about to attempt to repeat himself and add another trophy to his Robin wall.
Who is Robin in Batman Beyond?
So that's what's complicated, and because I'm really terrible at this because I haven't been paying attention, is apparently there hasn't really been one, and I think I glossed over the important part of this issue, which is who he is.
Okay.
Because
has there ever been a Robin in Batman Beyond?
I don't recall, but I believe the point to this is that it's not something that's been normal. Those of you that are Batman Beyond fans, feel free to slap us silly in the community, because I think a really good story is starting to be laid out here, and I just don't know enough about the Batman Beyond universe to speak intelligently to it. But if you're into original Joker, the future of Gotham and Barbara and everybody, it's pretty fun. That I know this is a book people are having difficulty with. I don't sell a lot of it, but there is a very dedicated fan base. I think this is a great place for folks to jump back in because it kind of intertwines stuff with what common DC fans and Batman fans are going to know and what has been provided in the future kind of different world telling of Batman Beyond.
Okay.
And then I think finally for me, I did read Batman 60, so we're still unpacking that whole what is Bane actually up to? What is Cobblepot and the Penguin actually providing us in addition now? So it's interesting.
Filler,
Batman's super angry now. He is punching his way through his problems. Batman 60 was Batman punches a lot of problems in the face repeatedly. And he finally pushes Commissioner Gordon to the point of, no, I think we're done here. So Bane is still kind of successfully manipulating Batman into crushing his own world around him, but we still don't know the end game. But
I think that is the end game. This is Hush on steroids.
Right. And the last panel, the last page of this book kind of brings back a rebirth thing. I am not spoiling this because it's really good. That I think we're finally starting to see the bits and pieces of the payoff of the disaster that was Batman 50, where we got a glimpse of this. That very clearly in 61, we're now going to start seeing what this actually means. But the
what's
totality
the next run called? Nightmares?
I'm not. Oh,
yeah,
sounds right.
The next run. The arc is called Nightmares. Tom King tweeted out the layout of the rest of the story, like
nice.
Of what each issue to issue was going to be.
And yeah, there's just so much cool going on, and I'm now excited again because I think he's going to get to the payoff. So it's interesting. We'll see how it plays out. And then other than that, I hate to admit it, but I'm way behind on lots of things. But I actually also just started and completely finished watching Castlevania on Netflix. I started it and then plowed through it because wow, Castlevania.
Oh yeah, I mean it is easy to plow through.
Yeah, and I heard a lot of people say, "No, it's really good. You should check it out." And I'm like, "Okay." I wasn't that dude that played those games, so fine. But I heard it was really good. So I turned that bad boy on, and they're like, "Oh, it's written by Warren Ellis," and I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm in."
Right. I mean, that
sorry,
makes a big difference. If you're not familiar, Warren Ellis is a phenomenal, groundbreaking comic book writer. So the fact he wrote Castlevania is a big win for Castlevania and the nerd community.
Right. And it was really good. And it was like, oh, yeah, the dialogue is Warren Ellis top to bottom. So if you're used to reading his stuff, his dry wit is super razor sharp. And I was pretty happy. But again, not for the kiddos. Warren has an expanded vocabulary. And I did kind of look at my wife when I was like, oh, Warren Ellis wrote this. And she's like, oh, this should be really good. And it also means that he's going to say the F word a lot. And and he did.
I think my favorite interaction was the demon and the priest in the church. That was dope. But also the last, I want to say it's the 2 episodes from the end of season 3 or 2 or whatever we're on, was like straight Dragon Ball Z, and I freaking loved it.
Yeah. No, I got lost for a minute, and then I was like, nope, I'm good. I'm just riding this out. And it was super fun, and it's super violent and super wordy. So be aware of those things, but it's a fun watch. It is very well drawn. It is very well voice acted. I'm kind of disappointed it took me this long to get to it. So if most of you are saying, well, yeah, we already watched it because it's really good. Well, I finally caught up, and thank you all for trying to convince me to actually watch it.
I did. I watched all of Daredevil season 3 and Get Shorty since the last time we talked. Daredevil season 3 was. Go ahead.
I was gonna say you deserve a sticker or a gold star or something, and I started looking for some, and I don't have any. So
Sorry.
Yep, here you go.
It's an honorary gold star. Daredevil season 3 was hands down the best Daredevil season, but also I'd probably say it's the best Netflix Marvel thing. Together, maybe. But it was great. But I'm a big I don't even know his name because I'm terrible. But the dude from the It Crowd is the main character in Get Shorty, along with Ray
Oh,
Romano,
nice.
where he plays a gangster trying to produce a film, and it was great. I thoroughly giggled and enjoyed myself. But that story was originally written by the same guy who wrote Justified, and I enjoy his writing a lot. So
yeah. Okay.
but
I was
that
going to
movie
ask you about that. That's going on my watch list. Well done.
all right. So
Yeah. So moving right along with the podcast, we have a few things we'd like to talk about, and depending on time, we'll see what we get to. But I know that Hector and I were talking, and we just wanted to revisit Titans from DC Universe again because it's it. We said up front, hey, this was better than we thought it was going to be. It's not just better; it's pretty darn good. So
I've seen a lot of people in the nerd world that are pseudo professional nerds, like Artist Alley and Comic Con people, say this is the best superhero show they've ever seen. Now,
what says Hector?
I'm not going to say it's the. I'm not going to say it's the best, but I'm also going to say I'm disappointed. Here's what I can put out to you: the most recent episode, the episode that came out the morning that we're recording this, was a Hawk and Dove episode that featured no other Titans.
Oh, interesting.
Like, it is just a Hawk and Dove backstory, and I was not at any point bored or really wish there was something else happening. Like, I was flipping enthralled. And if you tell me that you're going to make me watch an hour of Hawk and Dove and I'm going to be totally cool with it, you've done some good work.
Yeah, there's not a lot of people just because how many listeners, you can raise your hands and we'll count them later and we'll tell everybody, know who Hawk and Dove is at all.
Real story.
They're right. And we're not even talking original Hawk and Dove, because technically the iteration, because Hawk and Dove originally was two dudes.
You get that in this.
Oh, even better. So cool. So DC is going to give you the deep cut and the Rob Liefeld update of Hawk and Dove, which have been
I think the last time Hawk and Dove was popular in comics was when they were associated with Birds of Prey, with Gail Simone.
That's probably a good point. Good run and good use of the characters.
Yeah. And since then they haven't really been on anybody's radar, but it's been really consistent, outside of Starfire's fashion choices.
She's stuck in the 70s if you're curious, but I'm not sure why.
She did change the purple outfit, but it's a different purple outfit now.
Yes.
You get a lot, and honestly, outside of the violence and the stuff, but dealing with issues and everything, they brought, one of the reasons I got so pumped was when I heard that Jason Todd was going to be in it. And if you know me, I'm a big Red Hood fan, and I was excited to see hold on, let me fact check myself. Is this the first live action iteration of Jason Todd? I believe it is.
That sounds fair. I'm trying to think in some of the early movies, but
no,
I'm pretty sure it was always Dick Grayson, typically, even in the earlier movies. I mean, obviously DC did a ton in their animated universe, but
not even a ton, dude. He's only in Red Hood and the Outlaw, or in Batman Under the Red Hood.
Oof.
And maybe some of the recent stuff like Bad Blood and stuff, but like, he hasn't had a lot of representation. So when I see that the first on-screen representation of Jason Todd is coming, I'm pumped. But guess what? By the end of the episode, I remember why we voted to kill him.
Right. I just finished that episode. So Hector's about 2 episodes ahead of me, but yeah. I just finished the full Jason Todd, because they give you a teaser and then you get a full one, which you get more of his backstory. And yeah, at the end of that episode, he beats the living crap out of a bunch of cops that, something had just occurred. They rescued somebody. And Dick's like, oh, the cops are here. And Jason's like, I got this. And he's like, cool. And Dick's like, cool, he's going to distract him or whatever. And he beats the living crap out of like,
you know what the fight
cops.
reminded me of? The Hit Girl hallway scene.
Ooh.
Like where Hit Girl comes out of the elevator. That's what Jason's cop fight looked like. And I'm just like in utter shock. Like, why are you hitting cops? But it was just.
And he sets that part up of his character that Dick's like, wait, what? Batman can't be cool with you doing that. And Jason's just like, he's not. And it's like, oh, dang. We got different Robins. So it's awesome that they're setting up very obviously that Dick isn't happy with Bruce, but it's interesting because you still find out that they're on different levels for different reasons.
Yeah, and one of the things that you see throughout the storyline pretty heavily through the whole thing is that early on, Dick is blaming Batman for his lack of control, and then he goes to move to blaming the Mask for his lack of control. And then you see by the end of some of the more recent episodes that there's no one else to blame. That it's just the fact that Dick is dark in his heart and he can't blame anyone else. And honestly, like, I'm doing a Faith and Fandom chapter on that concept.
Nice.
That you can't blame the Mask, but like I think what this DC universe is $70 like for the year total, something like that.
Right.
Watching this entire run of Titans and having comic books at my access has been worth it. I am disappointed in the lack of new comics or the lack of comics changing out more frequently. If I'm going to say that my money is well spent, then I would have needed them to step their comic book game up more frequently. And they even had a disclaimer on the app that said comic books will be able to purchase in full library form in October, and October's gone and we got nothing. So what up?
Well, I'd be curious because I can put my retailer hat on for a millisecond and kind of talking about the DC Universe concept. Retailers did not take the news of DC Universe coming well. We're like, cool, TV shows. We're like, but wait, you're going to give them the comics? What? How I money make? And a lot of retailers really kind of lost their mind. And to be honest, to a certain extent, probably for a good reason. So I think some of that is DC trying to find out where the balance is to maintain the direct market for new comics in some way, shape, or form, while also being able to deliver good digital content that makes it worth the cost of admission. And it's an interesting balance because consumers don't care. They want the content however they can get it, and preferably in a way that is most affordable. But I think what you're seeing is the playing out of what retailers actually have voice in the publishers that are providing content to the direct market just as much. To say the very least, it's complicated, and a lot of us are kind of torn because technology is doing cool stuff for us in the industry, but we also don't want to support our way out of non-existence.
Yeah.
Truth bomb. I'm sorry.
Truth bomb. No, you're good. But Titans is worth it. It's definitely worth watching. And if you happen to be a listener in another country, it's hitting Netflix for you on January 11th.
If you are in the Canada or overseas, because the way the contracts fell, they can't provide DC Universe, I guess, in certain international markets, so they sold the content to Netflix. So you win.
Yeah, and America, you have to pay for it.
Aw.
Aw. The rest of the world gets our leftovers.
Yeah.
I'll say this too, though, dude. The lady, the woman, the female that is playing, I'm sorry for if I use the wrong term, that is playing Dove is a gangster.
Nice.
She's a gangster. But yeah, but Titans has been worth it. I feel like it's violent and it's edgy, but without doing it for the sake of violence and edginess.
Yeah, there was a moment watching some episodes I wondered, especially early on, but then I'm like, oh, this isn't. You made a point, so I'm in. And because some shows, it's definitely about the splatter for the sake of the splatter. And I mean, if they wanted to go all in, the full Jason Todd episode was probably the one they could have. Let's just say lots of acids involved. So,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we'll be okay. So, it's still not for the kiddos, but it's a great watch, and we just wanted to come back and visit that again because it was really kind of neat, and it continues to impress. So Jeff Johns, again, we've said before, when he's involved in projects, things typically tend to go pretty well, and I think they're on a good path.
I think so too. I really think that they're doing something solid.
Yep. So we just wanted to bring that back to you guys because it's worth the price of admission to check it out. And DC Universe in general also has a couple other shows. They have like a daily hit piece on just comics and DC Comics in general. So you can learn a lot, know what's going on in the DC world of things in general, and watch shows. And even better, we know more shows like this are coming. So
like the Harley Quinn show looks fun. I'm excited about
oh yeah,
scary Swamp Thing show. Like, I'm excited for this stuff. It'd just be nice if we picked up the pace a little. Because, realistically, what DC put out for the advertisement and what we've received has been a little bit of false advertising.
Yeah, there's been some debate about that. Absolutely.
But, false advertising in the world of the comic book industry is not a new concept.
No.
Because like transitioning to another thing we want to talk about is the simple fact that covers and comic book covers and stuff can be crazy misleading, and a bit discouraging with that.
Yeah,
what do you feel? You sell comic books for a living.
I do, and the most fascinating thing is I think I know which one you're probably going to pull for recently, but maybe not. There's a ton of examples.
Ahead. I'm interested.
But the one that like stood out to me the most is the Batman arc with Penguin has been in their advertising, their solicits, and some of the things on it's like Batman and Penguin gang up and join alliances or whatever. And it's like, wait, that still isn't really happening.
None of that's happened at all.
Right. And I read it going, no, why would you do this, Tom King? Why? Well, Tom didn't. Clearly editorial, etc. We got to remember comic book writers are part of a team. There are artists, there are letters, there are editors, and sometimes even entirely separate cover artists, which means sometimes things get lost in translation or something's going to be done for a marketing purpose. And I was like, why?
Like in the most recent issue of Batman 60, Penguin and Batman are fighting shoulder to shoulder on the cover, which actually did happen in the detective arc with Two-Face, but not in this. And in total honesty, Penguin spends the entire issue in a cage with Batman not even around.
Yeah, so he's in a cage sharing poetry with Alfred. I'm sorry, spoiler alert, but now you know.
Yeah. And so what the world, I was like, that is a straight up lie. One that made me a bit salty recently was the DC Nuclear Winter Christmas special.
Ooh, go on. Tell me how the bad comic hurt you.
First of all, interesting concept to do a nuclear winter special. I didn't hate it. It was a good issue. I enjoyed it. It was the first Firestorm story I actually enjoyed in a minute. But front and center on the cover of this issue, like the main focal point on the issue cover, is Harley Quinn.
Yep.
Harley Quinn is not in the book.
Oh no. Yeah.
Like Harley is not in the book at all. how are you going to front and center blow up and put a character on the cover who's not in the flippin' book?
Unfortunately, that comes back to what I said kind of in passing, is marketing, because I can sell a book with Harley Quinn on the cover without even mentioning it. That Harley Quinn fans are going to go, oh, Harley, and they're going to pick it up on the cover alone. Some of those fans are buying it for the cover, and that's fine. But I'm
I've
surprised
bought
actually
issues for
now.
covers. That's fine.
Yeah, right. But oof, that's a pretty good example right there.
But that's a $9
ugh.
comic book.
Yes, no, it's a giant size. It's got 10 stories in it. It's not cheap. Oh, that's a bummer.
No.
I haven't had a chance to read all of that holiday special yet, but those are the types of things that, what really grinds my gears, that
Yeah.
kind of thing, is absolutely true. Now, sometimes, to be fair, we can talk about the balance of sometimes covers are special variants that we're bringing in a special artist to do a cool cover, and sometimes they're just really cool. And that's part of the retail game, is how can I get people to buy multiple copies of the same book just for literally the cover? And variants have been a complicated existence in the comic book industry for a long time. But as of late, it's even worse because I'm trying to think. I'll give a couple examples. Star Wars #1, when it was brought back to Marvel, the number of covers for that book was something like 50 to 75 variants, because including store exclusives, including just people. Yeah, if you go and find stores that catalog all of them, like normally they're listed by alphabet numbers for cover numbers. So cover A is usually the main cover. Cover B is a secondary or the only variant. I think on some sites I saw things like, if you scroll on Excel way too far and you start seeing double letters, yeah.
That's not good.
That's when there's a lot of covers. And it's tricky because some people are like, I really want that one really cool artist. Well, if you don't know, comics sometimes will also put ratios on books and variants like that, which means a retailer has to buy X number of comics to get one of that particular variant. So 1 in 10 and 1 in 25 is your most common ratio variant. But now we're into a world where 1 in 50s, 1 in 100, 1 in 200, 1 in 250, 1 in 300, 1 in 400, 1 in 500, 1 in 1,000 is a common thing. And that's just insane. So yeah, sometimes covers can be misleading, but sometimes they can also be these really strange money hits for really cool art. And that's the thing that disappoints me more as a comic book lover, is sometimes there's some really cool art that hits a variant page that you might have to pay $500 for a thing just to get the cover that you're looking for. So yeah,
that sucks. There's
covers
no part
can
of that
be
that's not
super misleading or super expensive.
yuck.
Were there any others that like stood out recently? I'm trying to think.
It's been
I know the
of
Batman one was like a big deal to me because it's like, yeah, that literally is not what's happening here.
That's not what's happening. The Harley Quinn one was a big one. Marvel honestly hasn't been that bad for it from the stuff that I've seen.
Yeah, historically, like Stan Lee days, what you would see on Marvel books in comparison to DC is the catch the new spectacular issue of Spider-Man where he goes to the movies. You'd see like those taglines on a thing, or this is the first exciting issue of Fantastic Four. All that kind of stuff. But it wasn't.
It's derivative, but it's not deceptive.
Right. It's not Galactus and Mr. Fantastic team up to take on Thanos. Wait, what? Actually, Marvel, I might read that book. So credit is to Chris Poirier, Poirier. Sorry, what?
But no, it's just it puts a sour taste in my mouth. To pick something up and it have nothing to do with what you're paying for.
Exactly.
Like, and that's the thing. If it's a variant cover, fine, I'll deal with that. But it should not be the main cover. If it's a total non-consecutive, non-sequential, non-essential part of the story, please stop trying to milk us dry for books that you don't think are good enough, so you have to false advertise.
Ooh, this has been Hector and Chris on Real Talk Comics, and we won't be back next week because
No,
we'll
we're
probably be
fired.
hearing from DC Comics. And
If DC Comics was going to come after me, they would have been done it.
Yeah, well, it's good that you haven't received any cease and desist letters. Hopefully, we will continue to not do so. But no, the truth is, right, that we really love comics and the comic book community and comic book nerds, geeks, etc. We're highly opinionated, if you haven't figured that out in 5 episodes. But I think it's part of the fun of this particular hobby for us and for a lot of folks is it's not just I'm sorry. There are actually examples where it's just one writer and one artist, which is really cool. But most comics are a small team, a small army of people that put together the entire stories and concepts. So,
like if
getting
a
into the
Sean Murphy
details-
book is misleading, that's on Sean Murphy.
yeah, that's entirely on Sean. So, Sean, great work so far. Don't mess it up.
Yeah,
No pressure.
You've been warned.
I mean, so yeah. Sometimes we got to take a step back and remember that these are people. They've put their heart and soul into these things, but yeah, at least talk to your editors.
Well,
we know
and,
editorial
I don't
probably
think
had something
I'd ever
to do with that.
I don't think I ever realized how much heart and soul went into a cover of an issue until we had dinner with Afua at
Right. Mm-hmm.
NC Comic Con Bull City. Yeah, right, Bull City.
Yep.
Right, that the right one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We Chris and I had the privilege of sitting down to dinner with Afua Richardson, who's like one of the dopest artists out there, and she was talking about how she worked in African dialect and symbolism into her Black Panther covers that I would have never seen. That I wouldn't have seen the depth of it, but listening to her talk about it was like she went in deep and put a lot of work into just putting some things on her cover. And here's the thing, I'm 99% sure the stuff that she worked to put in her cover was her heart and not a Marvel mandate.
Right. No, absolutely. It seemed obvious from that conversation that she felt that this was an important part of the Wakandan lore, and it was stuff that could be tied back to really neat historical things from Africa in general. So she did a ton of research, and so she overlaid her art with characters and symbolism. She explained to us that there's a few covers that she did for Black Panther. You can seek those out. And just look at the detail in the dress or any carvings or anything in all of them, because they all do actually tie back to something specific. She just had a Shuri cover as well. So I know she's been pouring her heart into those. And that's what's really great about this. And just, kind of the connections we make through Love Thy Nerd and ourselves as well, that, Drew and Chris talk to game designers, and we get that, people do pour research and effort into the things that they create. Comic books is exactly the same, that whether it's simply just a cover, I say simply, but it's not simple at all. It's a lot of work. Or to the sequential art that makes it to the pages and telling a story, that we get uppity at times and we complain and we do jocularity back and forth. Jocularity.
That's a word.
It is a word. Thank you, Father McCahey. Yeah, go watch MASH now. You're welcome. That's going to be stuck in your head for a while now. Jocularity.
I haven't watched MASH since I was in kindergarten.
Dude, revisit it, but that's a different podcast. The cool part about all this stuff is there are human beings behind all these products. And I think Hector and I would both agree, and Hector, you can jump in here behind me. And go to conventions, go to places or signings where these people are congregating. Go to game conventions, go to tabletop conventions. I know the Love Thy Nerd crew just got back from PAX
Yeah.
Unplugged, and they said the same thing. Is it's so cool to see the people behind the art, behind the concept, behind the mechanic, because they're pouring everything into these creations, and we get to sit here and talk about it every couple weeks. That it's good to end episode number 5, this week's episode, with that reminder of there's some really cool people behind all these projects. And we just want to encourage you guys, get to know these folks, follow them on the social webs, because a lot of them are super social and will show you behind the curtain. There's so many cool creators to follow that, like even Scott Snyder, other than watching him pick up his kids at school a lot, which is just awesome to me, is his Instagram is also stuff he's working on. So it's stuff he's working on mixed with family that you're like, oh, these people have to go pick up their kids in the middle of outlining these stories or drawing these stories. It's just really neat to me to see, for lack of a better term, the humanity of the people behind these things. I know that sounds weird, but I think sometimes
it
as
makes a huge
fans,
difference.
yeah, I think as fans, we put these folks on a pedestal and we forget their humanity.
I don't even think it's that we put them on a pedestal. I think we rob them of any identity other than you supply my need. That
Yep.
we don't really care that you have a life. We care that you give me my product, that you give it to me in the way I want it, and I have every right to think you are less of a human if you don't do it exactly how I feel. And I think,
again, Real Talk with Hector and Chris. New
I think that's the
podcast
toxicity of fandom culture right now, is that if you don't give it to me how I want it, I have the right to be angry with you. And
no, that's a really good point, and we're seeing more and more of that, and that's why I just encourage, follow these folks, see who they really are. A lot of them will interact with you on social because they want to talk to their fans.
Well, it's like Tom King responded to my tweets like a hot minute ago. And I never would have imagined that, and, having been in the Comic-Con industry for about 6 years now, I've met literally outside of Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee, I have met every comic book creator that's influenced my life. And you know what? They're all real people. They're all people that I've had to sit through crappy cons. They're people I've literally sat across from and eat bad hotel breakfast. That they literally, not only do they put their home life at bay to write these books and draw these issues, but they legitimately will travel and tour just to interact with you. I remember sitting at I was at a show in Virginia, and I'm sitting at the same table with Chris Claremont, who is a legend in comic book industry and responsible for some of the best X-Men stuff ever. And we're sitting at the same like family style table with Chris Claremont, and watching him interact with people, and meeting these people's wives, and a lot of times you'll see the wife of the writer or the artist at the booth, and because it's their life as much as it is the creators.
Yep. There's a ton of husband and wife teams in both directions, that a lot of spouses are their managers or run their tables or
it's like, I've never seen Bob Camp without his wife. I've never seen I've never seen like Mark Bagley without his people. They care. And so, yeah, these are people, and they are as much a part of this community as we are.
No, it's a great reminder that no matter how nerd rage you might get when something drops or whatever, and you see what's going on, and we'll end here. We won't even talk about it. We're just going to say that it was a thing. Is even as we were prepping to get into this episode, literally the Avengers trailer dropped. And I was telling Hector, half of my Facebook feed had people like, what gives? That was nothing. We don't know. It's like, well, we get that. We get you. We're fans too. But remember that there's teams of creatives that piece these things together. They're not going to hit home runs all the time, but we need to remember and celebrate them in the highs and the lows and just keep the community together, because when the community is firing on all cylinders, and we're going to prep a show, probably our next one, unless something really amazing in comics happens in the next couple of weeks, to talk purely about that community, what convention life is like, because we think it's really important. There's a lot of great opportunities for folks to engage community, learn more about this hobby, and it comes through conventions and stores that do signings and events and that type of thing. So Hector and I promise we're going to get you an episode where we kind of chat about that, because we think it's really useful for folks, even people that are just starting out. It's a great way to jump in with both feet and really get to see all the different sides of this amazing industry.
Sounds like a plan.
It's a wonderful plan, and all the pieces are together.
I've played way too much Red Dead Redemption to hear I have a plan without cringing. Oh my gosh.
I have a plan.
I have a plan, Arthur. Money. I just need the money. We're going to Tahiti. Tahiti, Arthur. Tahiti. I need you to stop doubting me, Arthur.
So that's it for Hector and I this week. Thank you for listening to the Free Play to the Pull-Less podcast. Yeah, Bubba, we promised we would never do that on air again, but Red Dead is life. And we're all going to Tahiti as long as the plan and the money works out. But that literally is it for Hector and I this week. Thanks everybody for continuing to listen. We're sorry. I'm sorry that we're a week behind, but life does happen, and Ralph breaks the internet. But you can find us on the interwebs. Please remember to like and subscribe our show. The more you like and subscribe, the more we show up in iTunes. And that's my vanity point for this week's episode. But we'd love some feedback. We'd love to know what you all are thinking of the show this far. You can find us on lovethynerd.com. Hit up the podcast network. You can literally comment on any of the episodes, but you can also join us in the Love Thy Nerd Facebook community and continue the conversation with us, or just see all of the antics that all of the wonderful nerdy and geeky people that come together in Love Thy Nerd, and just see all the cool stuff that we talk about, which is usually Africa by Toto and many other important.
So is it I miss the rains down in Africa, or I bless?
I'm pretty sure it's bless, but
I've always thought it was miss, and now I'm totally learning new things. Go on.
Okay, well, we'll talk to Matt about that. He can set you straight. He is by far the Love Thy Nerd expert on Toto and all things Africa.
We have to end this.
Yeah. So thanks for listening, everybody. We're super glad to be part of the Love Thy Nerd podcast network, and this is just all the fun we have week to week. So remember, kids, read more comics.
You've been listening to the Pull-Less podcast with Chris Poirier and Hector Miron, part of the Love Thy Nerd podcast network. Be sure to rate and review the show and share on all the social media.